Hey fantasy fans, this is Dan here with TreeBeard Book Reviews, and today I'm reviewing Jingo by Terry Pratchett. Let's get into it. Alright guys, so before we get started on the review here, I just want to say, thank you for watching my channel again, and we're going to get on here with another Discworld book. But before we get on with the review, please like, comment, and subscribe if you like the content you're seeing, and if you want to see more Discworld reviews. So, what I'm going to do in this review, I'm going to talk about what I liked and what I disliked about Jingo. I'm going to get into spoilers because it's the fourth book. This is the fourth book in the Guard series, the 21st book in the Discworld universe. So if you're kind of watching it at this stage, I mean, you should be prepared for spoilers. At least that's my view. So let's get into what I liked about Jingo. Okay, so let's talk about the things I liked about Jingo. So there's four real big things I really liked. I really liked the plot of this story. It's really a plot-driven story. I really like the characters, specifically Vetinari and Vimes and Leonard of Quirm in this book. There's some really good quotable moments, and I really like that we left the city of Ankh-Morpork. So I'm kind of going to break all these sections down into and discuss them. So the first thing I want to discuss is the plot. So this is actually a really cool Discworld book. Or at least a Guards book. It's a really cool Guards book because it's very different from the other ones where everything is really centered on Ankh-Morpork. So what's happened is this city in the middle of the ocean has sprouted up, the city of Leshp, and it's situated straight between Ankh-Morpork and Klatch. So Klatch is just this neighboring city. So the two cities, or these two nations, start warring over who owns Leshp. And it's a really, really cool story. It's a totally different Guards book. They're not too worried about kings and stuff like that, even though there are discussion of kings and the use of royalty. So there's obviously this banter going on between the two countries that Ankh-Morpork wants it, Klatch wants it. So Klatch sends a delegation of one of their princes to Ankh-Morpork to kind of settle this, to meet with Vetinari and settled this dispute, and there's an assassination attempt on him, and the Guards have to investigate it, and they're investigating this this assassination attempt, and it's really making it look like the Klatchians set up these assassin to kill this prince, and the Guard are investigating that, and then the Klatchian embassy burns down, and it pretty much just starts a war between these two countries. And there's this shifty character who that Vimes is tracking throughout this whole plot is 71 Hour Ahmed. This character is really, really good. I'm going to talk about him later. So he's he's a character of interest that, he's kind of driving the plot forward, 71 Hour Ahmed, because there's a mystery of who is he, what role does he play in this assassination, in the murder of the two people who tried to, do this assassination attempt. And so what happens is the two countries are going to war, Klatch versus Ankh-Morpork, and this book, really brings up a lot of themes of racism and nationality, and that's why it's called Jingo. Refers to Jingoism. So Terry does a really good job of touching on these themes. I really enjoyed the plot. The plot was very well done in this book. It did feel like it was missing a little something, something that the Guards books all have. I don't know what it is, and I maybe if I thought on it longer, but it just felt like it was missing something. And maybe that's what I'll talk on with some of the other parts of the good with the character. Four characters I really want to highlight here was 71 Hour Ahmed. He was great. Vimes, Vetinari, and Leonard of Quirm. So this is a very different Guards book because usually the format has been for the other ones where new Guards are added and you do a spotlight on that new Guard that's been added or the new Guards that have been added. You get POVs from them. And you really learn about their motivations and why they joined the Watch and how the Watch is growing. You don't get that in this book. And maybe that's what I mentioned earlier, where it's missing that something. Because, we get a new Watchman like Red Shoe, and he's a zombie, and he's actually really cool. He's really interesting. Reg is funny. But yeah, so that was kind of missing. But the characters here, like Vetinari is brilliant in this book. You get so much more Vetinari. Like you see that he can juggle, and you really just see his skills and just how quippy he is. And then you meet a really interesting character, Leonard of Quirm. You see Leonard back in Men at Arms. But Leonard's great. He's like essentially Leonardo da Vinci. That's how he's described. I'll probably have a picture up here to show you like a rendition of Leonard. Leonard's awesome. He's just so brilliant, but his brilliance can lead to like destructive things. Like so, he built a submarine in this book, and they're going to explore like Lesh underwater and stuff like that. So yeah, he's so brilliant, but he also can build such devastating like war machines, like such as the gun that was in Men at Arms. So really loved Leonard. 71 Hour Ahmed, I loved him. He was so cool. He was so sweet because he, he's like chewing the cloves and he's leaving them as kind of like clues that he's been there. And he's like this shifty character, and you're always like, why is he called 71 Hour Ahmed? And then you eventually figure it out. I'm not going to spoil that, but it's really cool, like what his background is. And he's a Dreg. So Dreg is like this like feuding. They're called enemy. They just mean Dreg just means enemy in Clash. So they're like this warring tribe that just doesn't get along with anyone. And he's actually a Clatchian police officer. You learn, and he's really cool. You know, he's like that bad guy, but he's not a bad guy. He's like winking at you the whole time. You know, like the Watcher chasing him, and he's kind of letting them like catch him, and because he wants them to solve this mystery of what's going on, and he wants Vimes to help him. So it was great, and just Vimes in this book is very good. Vimes is good. Like this is a real character treatment of Vimes, I felt, where he like realizes his position in this city now. Like he's a lord. And he has these rights, and he can lead men. He doesn't need Vetinari. Like even though he's called Vetinari's terrier, like he doesn't need Vetinari. Like he can do things on his own, and he's. Oh, I really liked Vimes in this book. It just so many character treatments with him, and he's super interesting, and he is a natural born leader, but he has this like this self-doubt, and really liked Vimes. It was a very, very solid book. I really enjoyed Jingo. And like I posted something on the Discworld Reddit a few weeks ago about my review of Feet of Clay, and nobody really said Jingo was one of their favorite books of the watch, and I really enjoyed it. I don't think it's going to be my favorite watch book, and you'll see that in my rating later, but it was very strong. So last I want to touch on some quotes that really stood out to me that were fun. Okay, so Terry, as usual, even though he wrote this book a few years ago, I'd say, I think it's like at least 30 years old, maybe. He brings up stuff that are still irrelevant today, and that, issues that, just crop up all the time. So this is actually dealing with taxation. So this is when Vetinari at the beginning of the book is speaking with some of the, like the guild members, and he's talking about like taxes, and they're talking about, well, we pay our taxes. So let me read this quote for you. Ah, yes. Guild of Accountants. Gross earnings, 8 million Ankh-Morpork dollars. Taxes paid, nil. But yes, I see that you applied for a rebate of 200,000 Ankh-Morpork dollars. And what we received, I may say, included a Hershebian half-dong, said Mr. Frosttip of the Guild of Accountants. What goes around comes around, says Vetinari calmly. He tossed the paper aside. Taxation, gentlemen, is very much like dairy farming. The task is to extract the maximum amount of milk with the minimum amount of moo. And I am afraid to say that these days all I get is moo. So, again, that's just like so poignant today. We have all these massive corporations who make these billions of dollars and pay zero in tax. And I just thought it was so funny, Terry's, his satire really focuses on, looking at positions of power and speaking to power. So I really like that, like, because he, satire isn't satire if you're talking down to people or talking to people with no power, because then that's just bullying. So there's another quote I want to talk about. It's kind of poignant for like anti-vax a little bit. So it's from Sergeant Colon. Sergeant Colon had a broad education. He'd been to the school of, my dad always said, the college of it stands to reason, and was now a postgraduate student at the University of what some bloke in the pub told me. So it's just kind of like all this hearsay, do my own research kind of thing. So yeah, really, there's some banger quotes, but there's one thing, there wasn't a lot of death in this book. Like, death doesn't crop up with his usual bangers. So good book. That's the good for Jingo for me. I really enjoyed this book. So now let's get into some of the things I didn't like about Jingo. Okay, so let's get into some things I didn't like about Jingo. There really isn't too many things, and I think I really highlighted in the good where I said, this is a plot-driven book. It's not a character-driven book. Like I said, there are some really good moments with Vimes and Vetinari and Leonard O'Quirm, but you kind of know those characters already, and you're fleshing them out a little bit more. You're not really learning anything new about any new characters, and there were some other like new guards added, like I said, Red Shoe, and you don't really get any POVs from them. Like he crops up now and again in the story because he just follows the guards over to Clatch. But there's not a lot of introspection with the other guards. Like you get a little bit of Carrot, a little bit of Angua, and a lot more Colin and Nobby in this book. That's probably like one of my other gripes too. Is like I'm not a big fan of Colin and Nobby chapters. Like they were funny and like Nobby, Nobby was like pretending to be a woman and he was dressed as a woman, and then like so this book does touch on a lot of themes of like race and sexuality. Some of it's really on the nose and some of it's quite crude, so that can come off poorly in the book. I mean, I didn't mind a lot of it too bad because I know it's done in satire and Terry's not doing it to be mean or aggressive or put anybody down. But for some readers this could be a negative. So I did kind of put that in the negative that there is a lot of contention right now with like race and sexuality, and that this might not be your cup of tea. Like I said, I didn't mind it because I know it's coming from a place of like comedy and satire, and it's not speaking down to people. But that I could definitely highlight as a negative. And just one of the last things that kind of bothered me is too is like Vimes is a really bad husband. Like, and I really miss that we don't like we don't have that much Sybil in the book. Like Sybil's in it, but like he's not like he's an absentee husband. Like he built up this relationship in Guards, and he's just an absentee husband. He's never there, and like she, God loves Sybil. She's so wonderful. She's so bubbly, and she's such a nice person. And you can tell she loves her husband, and Vimes loves her to death too. But it's just be there, man. And I know he's one of those guys who's married to his job, but you're also married to this wonderful woman, so be there for that woman. So, like I said, there's not too many bad. Like I said, this felt like a different Guards book. It's like I said, it missed something. Something missed a little bit of a beat for me. It's still really good. And it's just, that's going to reflect here in my overall rating. So why don't we just get to my rating of Jingo. Okay, so let's start wrapping this up here, guys. So I probably prattled on. I usually prattle on a long time for the good for these books because I just love Discworld. It's like I said, it's slowly becoming my favorite fantasy series. Even though like Wheel of Time is probably maybe still my favorite. It's hard because they're so different. You can't really compare Discworld to Wheel of Time. We live in a universe where you can have both. I love both, and I'm going to say I love them both equally because they're amazing. But yeah, so to get to my rating for Jingo, definitely the goods outweighed the bads in this book. I really enjoyed it in the end, and in the end, I'm going to give Jingo 4.1 out of 5. Solid book, solid Discworld book. Really loved it. A lot of fun. Not as good as the other books, like the Discworld books for me, the Guards books for me. I still think now that I've reflected upon it, I think Feet of Clay might have been my favorite of the three. It was so good. It was so good. And like I said, great book. Pick Jingo up. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. And, we'll see you guys next time. More Discworld to come. Stay tuned on my channel here. There's a lot of stuff coming up that I'm really excited to do some videos for. And I think the next Discworld book I'm going to be looking at is probably Reaper Man. So stay tuned for that video, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.